relations. That was what we were just talking about. South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation Commission is hailed globally as an example of racial healing after the alleged fall of apartheid. It's been more than 2 decades since Nelson Mandela became president, and South Africa's racial wealth gap have not been reconciled. The 2011 census revealed that the minority of white population has 6 times the annual household income of black people. Reconciliation will require that all global white atrocities against black people be acknowledged, discontinued, and repaired. Henry L. McCollum and Leon Brown spent 3 decades on North Carolina death row. DNA evidence exonerated them in 2014, and both men were released. The white prosecutor Joe Britt, responsible for their unjust confinement, is a representative of the white commitment to black restoration. There is no doubt in my mind that they were not entitled to a pardon, and there is no doubt in my mind that they are not entitled to compensation by the taxpayers. You hear that?
Yeah.
And the last but not least, right? So that's racial reconciliation. We've been trying to do that in America for the longest while, and we haven't been successful at it.
I don't know what that reconciliation. Well, listen. I want to hear this song.
Okay.
I don't want to talk about it.
And last but not least, white privilege. Joseph Goebbels, Adolf Hitler, and Nazi Germany are never referenced as white privilege, run amok. But this term is now a fashionable component of how we are conditioned to verbalize the ongoing Holocaust. Here's our boy, Timothy Wise, Dr. Peggy McIntosh, and a growing number of whites are overjoyed to pontificate on their exploits. #Criming while white, and the knapsack of goodies centuries of pillaging provides. Plunder extracted from the destruction of black civilization, the phrase white privilege conveniently focuses attention on the benefit whites derive from racism, not the mandatory white conduct that sustain a racist empire. White deeds, white action, not privileges, void black life and distinguish our John Crawfords. Counter-racist logic demands that we employ the correct P word when discussing racism. Collective white power, collective white pathology must be precisely consistently identified as the source of black suffering. So there you have it, 7 items you should stay clear of when discussing racism, and that's in the Atlantic Black Star.
All right, Anselm. I want this. Put the song on for me.
What song is that?
This song is We're a Winner by Curtis Mayfield.
We are winner?
We're a winner.
We are a winner?
W-E-R-E. We're a winner.
A winner?
By Curtis Mayfield. Yeah. Curtis Mayfield was somebody that was mentioned by, what's his name? Cornel West. He wrote really great songs and ballads. I don't know if you remember, but he also wrote the score for Superfly and for Claudine. Mm-hmm. He's a very mellow sounding, calming voice. Mm-hmm. And reading about him here on Wikipedia, they do credit him for being a voice during the civil rights movement. So I would just, like to pay homage to him before we're gone from here.
So you want Curtis Mayfield? Here we go.
We're a winner, and never let anybody say, boy, you can't make it, cause some people matters in your way. No more tears do we cry, and we have finally dried our eyes. We're moving on up, moving on up. Lord have mercy, we're moving on up now. We're moving on up. We're living proof and all's alert that we're two from the good black land. And we're a winner, and everybody knows it too. We just keep on pushing. leaders tell you to. At last that blessed day has come, and I don't care where you come from. We're all moving on up, moving on up. Lord have mercy, we're moving on up now, moving on up. Moving on up, moving on up. Lord have mercy, we're moving on up. We're moving on up. I don't mind leaving here to show the world we have no fear. 'Cause we're a winner, and everybody knows it. We just keep on pushing, like your leaders tell you to. At last that blessed day has come, and I don't care where you come from. We're just gonna move on up, moving on up. Lord have mercy, we're moving on up. We're moving on up. You know, you may remember reading in your Jet Johnson publications, a whole lot of stations didn't want to play that particular recording. We're a winner. Can you imagine such a thing? Well, I would say the way I'm sure most of you would say, we don't give a damn, we're a winner anyway. Right on? I got a little strength out there tonight. Putting fire under us. I was saying, it's all right now. We have just another version that we'd like to lay to you about here. Believing very strongly in the equality and freedom for all, and especially we people who are darker than blue. We'd like to just lay another version to you. Trying not to offend anyone, but basically telling it like it is. We're a winner, and never let anybody say, boy, you can't make it, 'cause some people matters in your way. No more tears do we cry. The black boy done dried his eye. We're moving on up, moving on up. Lord have mercy, we're moving on up now, moving on up. There'll be no more Uncle Tom. At last that blessed day has come, and we're a winner, and everybody knows it too. We just keep on pushing, like Martin Luther told you to. And I don't mind leaving here to show the world we have no fear, 'cause we're moving on up, moving on up. Lord have mercy, we're moving on up, we're moving on up. So people get ready, I've got good news for you. How we got over, like we're all supposed to do. Let us all say amen, and together we'll clap our hands, 'cause we're moving on up, moving on up. Lord have mercy, we're moving on up now, moving on up. Continue to be a winner, all of you.
You have
late,
it.
great
Curtis Mayfield, man.
Curtis
That was a good
Mayfield.
one.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, you
Curtis
picked
is
a good
African American soul, R&B,
Moving on
funk
up, man.
singer, songwriter, guitarist, record producer, one of the most influential musicians behind soul and politically conscious African American music. I'd really like to have some more politically conscious African American music. Here's as he first achieved success and recognition with the Impressions during the Civil Rights Movement in the late 50s and 60s, and later worked as a solo artist. And Mayfield was born in Chicago. Curtis Mayfield. You know, I grew up listening to all these songs, and I mean, I really believe that we were moving on up, Anselm. I really did. And you know, that we've made progress, even in fact of that. You know, I think a lot of our problem is that this.
You see.
It's a self-hatred that
we
have.
We just went over the 7 terms that we should avoid using.
That's right.
And you just used that term.
That's right, because there has been
Progress.
Yeah. Not for everyone, though, but there has been progress. There has been.
See, they're brainwashing us that there is progress.
No, nobody's brainwashing me in anything. I can do quantitative analysis to say there has been some progress.
Wow.
But there's been progress overall in the entire society. I mean, if you're just looking at technology, so 40 years ago, everybody did not have a way to reach out to people using a telephone, and now almost everyone does. I mean, people might consider that.
No, they're talking about progress for black people.
How do we measure what progress is?
Poverty.
What else? What
Unemployment.
Unemployment.
Those things you can measure.
Okay.
If 25 years ago unemployment was 6%, and now 25 years later it's 7.9% or it's 13%, is that progress?
No, I'd say no.
If that the amount of black people in poverty was 17% back then, and 25 years later there's 25% of black people in poverty, is that progress?
Well, is that the case? You have that. I'm not saying.
I don't have that.
I'm not denying these stats that you're making up in your head right now.
I'm just using
and
it as
I
an
recognize
example.
that you're making these up right now.
Yeah, I'm using it up, but that's an example. I'm just using those things as examples. But what people may point to is that, yes, we are making progress. Barack Obama is the president of the United States. Loretta Lynch is the first black female to be the Attorney General of the United States of America. So people point to these one or few things that happen and call that progress. When you look at it overall, from an overall perspective, it's not really progress.
Okay, but
there is more black youths being killed today than 25 years ago by police. That's progress?
How do you know that?
You don't know that? You don't know that?
I would have to read and see that somewhere.
You trust me? Take my word on that one.
You think there are more today killed?
Absolutely.
Or more today that we are
There is
aware
more black males.
So you mean tell me so?
Being
back
killed.
in the times when people were being lynched and nothing was done, where people just disappeared, but it wasn't an issue, a public issue. Now it is a public issue.
Police are shooting black kids on a daily basis more than ever in the history of the United States of America.
Are you 100% sure of that?
200%.
Okay.
You want to look it up before we go?
I know that the incarceration rates are higher.
Oh, thank you for raising that too. So we're making progress. We have built more prisons in the 21st century than we have built ever in the history of the United States of America. That's progress for you. There is more black males in jail more than ever before. That's progress. That's progress. And I think, too, there is more black dropouts in the high school than ever in the history of the United States of America. That's progress. But
Well, wait a minute. Is it progress? So what about... that's all right. Because I don't want to come off on the other side. Go ahead.
No, you can come off on the other side.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
So more quota today.
No, I can't. I can't let you get away with this. I really can't.
Okay. After this, give up the tendency to get too caught up in other people's judgments and opinion. Give up the tendency to get too caught up in other people's judgments and opinion. So yeah, you
No, I'm not going to get caught up in your
you were going to
judgment or
defend your
opinion.
position.
No, I'm not going to defend my position.
That we
I'll
have
come
made
back
progress.
with the stats because, I mean, if more black people are dying today, how much of that is based on black people killing each other? Or are more white people killing more black people today than they were before? I don't really necessarily...
I was very specific, though.
So you said there's more white...
There's more police killing black males than ever in the history of the United States of America.
Oh, come on. You know what? I'm just gonna see what happens when I put that in. I don't know.
So just put it in. See what you come up with. Maybe we could get Curtis Mayfield back on to tell you something.
You need Curtis Mayfield to tell you something because you got to keep on pushing. That's what he says.
Yeah, get Curtis Mayfield back on here to tell you something. So you're gonna bring this up here before we go to
No.
time check and get out of here?
No.